Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus-year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Tubs, ladies and gentlemen, hello. I am actually really excited to be here. Christine Spratley, Bug Fear with Christine Spratley, living like an HBIC. So welcome. And I'm really excited, Joe, about today's podcast. I had been thinking about some things and some ideas. And again, it's like, what's in the pantry? You know, what things can we give? Can I share with you that I have either received from other women or practice, and spread them and sprinkle them or dump them a gallon or so into whatever, recipe you're making. Today, I'm going to bring into the pantry the idea, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And just marinate on that for a little while. And that give you some where that phrase came from. And I think it was, because I haven't looked this up, so someone check the facts. But it was in 2012, I think, where there was the triathlons called the Danskin Triathlon. And I had decided that I wanted to do a triathlon. And I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. And a little bit about this is to gear up for that, because I couldn't swim. I mean, I could swim, but I couldn't do any sort of long distance swimming. I mean, I could swim to the other side of the pool because I could swim across and back. And that's what it took to get into the deep end when I was a kid. So that's as much as I could swim. And I wasn't a water girl at all. So I had to go into the Y and learn how to swim. But I remember doing a practice run up to the Danskin. And the practice run was at a fitness place in Austin. And I think it was I can't remember the name, but Bee Caves Fitness Center or something like that. It was on Bee Caves Road. And it was an indoor bike, pool, swim, indoor bike, and then a run. You ran kind of a run circuit around this kind of outdoor in the woods track. And I was such a bad swimmer that my boyfriend at the time, Brett, you've heard me speak of Brett before, literally I was getting lapped and he was sitting watching. So first of all, he was out of bed on a Saturday morning way earlier than he wanted to be. But then he was watching a bunch of women. And I was getting lapped by really old, and as he put it, fat people. And he was he was yelling, go, go. And I just remember being so, and for some reason I could hear him. And I was like, I can't. Now, mind you, my comeback to him after we all got, because he was like, why didn't you go? And I was like, because I have all this muscle and those people had all this buoyancy. And well, that was that too, but they were also really good swimmers. And so that was my lead up to the Danskin. And so when the Danskin came around, there's this woman, her name is Sally Edwards. And I didn't realize this at the time. And, but she was 63. And she used to come in and she used to do these kickoff kind of talks. And, in these cities that they would do these, triathlons in. And the Danskin is all women. And she would go in and she'd be like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't realize that she was that old. And so I'm, way younger than I am now. And I'm listening to her and everything. And that she unveils this big poster for it. And it was this, and I still have it framed. And it was, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And because we were celebrating doing something for the first time. So I wanted to take this because as I've talked about fulfillment, and why this matters is what I realized when I'm looking back at why, not just why I wasn't fulfilled, but how did I get there? Because that's how I learned not to go there again. And one of the things that I did, and one of the kind of things that kept coming up and talking that I noticed was I wasn't doing things for the first time. I was doing a lot of the same things and getting into the habit of comfort and, my comfort zone and all of that. And the things that I would maybe do one big thing for the first time, but what I do now and what I look at now is I want to do little things. Because for me, doing the little things that are new and that are different are a lot harder because there's no excuse not to do them today. So my challenge as we listen to this is not only to think about when was the last time you did something for the first time, but what is the thing you could do today for the first time? And I'll take you through all of this and things like that. The other thing that I want to reach out to you about and kind of say why this matters is that, physically, and there's a study done by Harvard Center on Developing Child, and you may go, well, this is a development of a child study, but it's about the neuroplasticity. And we all know if you don't exercise your muscles, you don't, they don't stay the same. You have to continue to use them. And you have to do certain things to make them grow, but you have to at least do certain things to make them stay. And when I don't do things for the first time, I'm not using that muscle of curiosity. So I want to kind of tackle this from the side of curiosity. And when I'm not trying to be curious about something, there's no looking for the first time to do something. There's no looking for change for me. I'm not curious. And I talked about this before. For me, when I quit looking at myself because I was shut down this part of my life and I wasn't fulfilled, it meant that my level of curiosity and my willingness to explore questions, new things, new aspects of a situation, big or small, got a little bit less and less and less. And for me, I couldn't just compartmentalize and say, okay, I'm just going to ignore this part of my life, this section. So I numbed it, and then it numbed my curiosity in the others. And before long, I was doing the same thing in my comfort zone, but I was extremely uncomfortable. That's what's really wild, is how I call it my comfort zone, but I'm extremely uncomfortable in there. I call it that itchy sweater, because I'm allergic to wool and I love wool, but man, it's that itchy sweater on there. So think about it. It's physically necessary for me to do things different. And that means my mind is engaged in both my physical aspect, but also my spiritual aspect, the way I communicate in relationships, it in all of that. And then there's also another study, and I'm kind of interested in this because the older that I get, the more I'm aware, you may call it, of cognitive decline. And Joe, we were laughing about. I was telling you about my brain fog with my menopause, and you start sitting here going, "What's going on? What's going on up here? I need to pay attention. And what can I do to engage my thoughts to make them crisp?" And the Stanford Longevity Center has a study out there that found that continual learning reduces the risk of cognitive decline and depression. That sounds really great, right? It sounds like it makes sense. We all kind of know that. But if I'm not learning anything and doing things for the first time, which is how I learn, that's for me how I learn. I'm doing it different for the first time. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more, is what doing something for the first time looks at. But again, I think one of the reasons why I stopped looking at and trying to do things different was because, yeah, there's the fear of failure. Fuck fear. This is what it's about. There's we call it perfectionism, but we talked about that last time too, is that perfection is just me wanting to control the outcome of the response. Whereas if I was really trying to be a perfectionist, I would put it out there, screw up, fail, learn epically, and do it again and get it perfect. And then there's the other reason of, the comfort zone, the routine. But one of the things that is interesting is the play of dopamine. And I know this is sciences I'll get because I'm going to get screwed up here in a little bit. But I did, and how dopamine, it's the fun drug, I call it. And it motivates us to do things different. Well, when I don't have any of that, again, I go back to that. I don't want to look at the stuff that makes me uncomfortable. Well, if I numb that and I stay in that routine and I don't have anything that gets me excited or gets me, going, my brain literally shrinks when it's not challenged. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that as I was staying in my routine, as I was staying safe, as I was not failing, as I was doing all of this stuff, my brain, not engaged, shrinks. So, and there's a study by the National Institute on Aging that found that learning new skills helps delay memory loss and cognitive decline. Again, want to sign me up there. But think about, or I did as a woman, how much I spend swallowing emotions and uncomfortable situations rather than change. And what that does to my body. I've mentioned the book Women Are Angry by Jennifer Cox and talked about, what it does to swallow anger or to swallow those things. But also when I am not growing, I am also swallowing. I'm not changing. I'm not adding. And so, that stay in your lane, that stay in my lane leads to me in that routine that goes on and on and on, in that comfort zone that is no longer comfortable, extremely uncomfortable and extremely heavy. And so I need to ask myself, when was the last time I did something for the first time? So there's 4 areas that I want to tackle today. And I want to do it in a way that is, you want to go out and run a marathon or do a triathlon, go for it. I was telling Joe, I was reading about Sally Edwards again, because I was getting prepared for this. And I didn't realize that when she was talking to me, she was 63 and she was doing triathlons at 63 and kicking ass at 63. And I didn't realize that then, but I was like, oh, wow. Well, I guess that means I could do that because I'm not 63 yet. I'm 54, so I've got some time. And then I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that.
I just did some research on her. She did triathlons for 22 years and did 130.
In Danskin, she is the famous last finisher. And what it is, she literally did that so there was no woman left behind. No woman. You knew when you started that you were not going to finish last, which was, and I look back now, I had no clue about that, but I look back at that now, and that is way what we women do is in our tribe, in our groups, and our girlfriends. That is so what we women do. And if you don't have, I will throw down on this. Ladies, if you do not have a tribe that doesn't leave you, that leaves you behind, fire that fucking tribe. Seriously. Go find you some. Go find you some that won't, because they're out there. And it took me a long time to find, but find them. Because they'll go into battle with you and then they bring your ass out, wounded and all. And that is what's amazing. But I thought that was so incredible. Now looking back, again, I didn't realize how strong that was, but that was the reason why she was the last finisher.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
she
anyway,
also co-founded Fleet Feet.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And then that switched off into something, which is a whole nother area that she went into, which was, and another thing about her was she came up with a lot of the trainings for women to do triathlons and running. When I ran my marathon, I did it through a training program through Fleet Feet in Austin. And it was the first program that I had ever been to that was like, okay, we're going to start and you're going to walk for 5 minutes and you're going to run for 2. And then and we just built up there. And that's how I built up to do my marathon. And it was pretty incredible. I really, really enjoyed that. And again, shout out and thank you to the women, to the old broads that did it and did it before us and did it out of the generosity of their heart and showed that you could do this. And I laugh at this because I will tell you about my triathlon experience there when I did the dance skin. 2 things I'll point out we're on this tangent a little bit about women. First of all, I went and I did it, and there was a woman. We kind of were around the same. We'd come out of the swim, and about the same time, and then you go to your thing and you get your bike and whatever. And so we came out of the swim, and she was to the left, and my bike was to the right on the right side of the runway thing. And she sat down and she started eating a piece of chocolate cake. I'll never forget this. And me being young, I'm like, I'm gonna kick ass. I don't know whose ass I'm gonna kick, but I'm gonna kick ass. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And I was like, I remember looking at her going, that's a piece of chocolate cake. Like, what? I didn't know you could do that. Like, I didn't even remotely cross my mind. But then so then I go and I take off on my bike and I'm biking. And came back and somehow she was already there ahead of me, eating a fucking piece of chocolate cake.
She's doing a different kind of triathlon.
So like she is not only sitting in transition, eating a piece of chocolate cake, she is also kicking my ass in whatever section of the triathlon that we were doing. So I'm confused because the bike was really, I was doing good on the bike, and so I'm going to make my way up. And when you transition from the bike to the run, it's the brick, which basically your legs are like, ugh. And I remember running, and what they do, I don't know if they still do it because it's been a while, but they put your age on the back of your leg. They put it on my, I can't remember if it was on my back of my thigh or my ankles, but so the runner in front of you's age. And I remember running up this hill, and there was this woman that came up behind me, and and her age was like 56. And I was like, bitch. And then I got done. I was all excited. And there was this woman eating a piece of chocolate cake. And she again, she had beat me somewhere in the run, and she finished before me and ate a piece of chocolate cake. And I divert into that conversation, that story about women, and for 2 reasons. One, again, shout out to the 56-year-old, rather than me. If you're younger and you're getting your ass kicked by an older woman in business and whatever, in athletics, you too can do that. You too can be that age. And I mean, that's what they're showing you. They're showing you how to show up. And that's what Sally was doing, was showing at 63, this is how you can show up as a woman, which is pretty incredible. So I have had to learn, or I've chosen to learn. I haven't had to learn because there's times when I didn't, to not be angry at the women that are kicking my ass that are older than me or better than me, or even younger that are kicking my ass, but that I can do that too. And that's what it showed me. And the other thing that it showed me was, so shout out to them and embrace that, God, you can do that at this age. Whoa, that's awesome. Let's go show all the little girls that you don't have a time frame in which to do things. Again, if you're willing to do something new and for the first time, you can always do it. If you haven't succeeded at 50, you can succeed at 55. If you haven't done it yet, it's going to be the first time. So go do it. And that's what it showed me. And the other thing was that woman eating chocolate cake. And I was such a hard ass around most of the stuff that I've done in my life around succeeding and, I was extremely competitive. I still am. And I'm going to tell on myself, and again, I'll get back to this, but I am this competitive, and this is such a humbling experience. When my company, Deloitte, decided, pickleball, and they put together a Deloitte pickleball thing, and we would go and we would play, and it was a bunch of new people, and my husband went, and he loved it, and so then we started playing, we'd go to rec centers around Raleigh, whatever. So then I think it was Tarboro.
And there's a big divide between people that take it seriously and people that are just wanting to chill.
Well, let me tell you about that. So I am extremely competitive, but at the time that I was playing, I was not in any shape. I was talk about not doing anything for the first time. And also my body had started to age because I wasn't doing anything. So the muscle was literally going away. And my asthma was not under control. So I was, but I had my competitive attitude, my competitive attitude will just make up for everything. So I would get out there and it was just miserable. I was so miserable. But this is, like when you're the last kid picked in the playground. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've all had that. So I was probably, I think I was 52 maybe. And of course, I'm not having any fun in my life at all, but I'm doing the things. I'm playing pickleball. So we go, and I think it was Tarbo or Lions or somewhere. And you go and you sign up, and then people sign up below you, and you put your name on the next open slot. So I sign up and I'm watching, and my name's not called. And so I, for a while I'm like, okay, whatever. But then teams start coming off. So I know that there's enough people to sign up. And what had happened was they were skipping my name. So they would there's my name. And then there's 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. Nobody would play with me because I sucked so bad. And I say that because, again, that's how I'd been so competitive my whole life. And it was so humbling to be the last kid picked on the playground at 52. I have since somewhat gotten in better shape and better health and are doing that with the ladies that I play with now. They at least play with me. But again, I say all that to kind of divert back into, I lived hard. I lived to be competitive, but yet when I was doing all that, that was the routine I was in. I wasn't doing anything. I can't say anything because I was doing a lot of things new, but things that really pushed me, things that pushed my spirit, that gave me something that really was outside that bubble of comfort zone. And so shout out again to all the women that showed me, Sally Edwards was 63. I can do a dance skin triathlon at 63 if I want to. Not sure I'm willing to go there yet, but if I want to. So coming back in, how do we do this? Where do we do it? And you don't need to go run a freaking dance. You don't need to run triathlon, okay? I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I believe in Atomic Habits. In Atomic Habits, the book, it talks about start small. And so you can repeat it and you can have success and you can, make it, I call it bite size. And so when I go into my personal life and I look at, what is the one thing you're going to do today in your personal life for the first time? And maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's, we can talk about having the conversations you don't want to have. Maybe it's telling a joke or trying on humor in a personal setting that exposes a side of you that you weren't, I remember sending out, I did the mugshot thing, but I remember there's some mugs on there that I'm like, do I send this out? Do I really show them like I'm really this kooky in the head? Yes, I said kooky. Oh my gosh, that's an old person's word. But I did. Screw it. So engage. How do you want to engage in something in your personal life for the first time? Again, maybe it's talking about your kids. Maybe it's like, hey, I want to tell you about my music. let's talk about music. I don't know. Joe, let me ask you, what is something in your personal life like that you would do for the first time? That's like, you should just, the camera's not on him, but his eyes just went like, what? But that's kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah, I feel like professionally, I feel like I do new stuff all the time because of the nature of my job. I do like adventure, so I'm always looking to do new stuff. But I think in like small little things that I haven't done. That's the problem with being old. You've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Could it be to learn to cook something different? Could it be learn to try a recipe? Could it be learn to, watch a video on something? I started watching comedy, and I started watching comedy of different types. I started watching comedy, stand-up comedians in foreign languages. Now, if you want to tell a good comic or comedian, I don't know if I said that right, but comedian, if they can make you laugh when reading subtitles, that shit's good.
Yeah.
But again, it's the first thing. Now, what that did is I now have friends, women friends in France and Britain and all over because I've interacted with them because of their comedy.
From a farm kid to college, nanny to pro boxer to boardrooms, Christine Spratley has lived a life that defies convention. Whether she's talking about fuck fear, doing this scared is still doing it, or beating the boys club, their game, our rules, your style. She delivers sharp wit, real talk, and a fearless approach to leadership, success, and personal growth. After hearing Christine, your audience will have a plan and unapologetically run until apprehended toward their fulfillment. Book her now at christinesprattley.com.
So what is it? What is that one thing that you're just going to go, I'm going to do this a little different today? I remember when I decided to start adding a little bit of joy in my life. And the way that I get joy is by making other people laugh or, just trying to, put a little of that unicorn sparkle dust in their life. I know it sounds weird, but I do it. And I remember getting on the elevator. I was working at Deloitte. And I get on the elevator, and there's this woman there, and it was in the morning. Like, nobody was freaking awake. We're all like, ugh. And I said something, cracked a joke of some sort, just something little. And she just, she just kind of giggled. And that was the first time that I did that. And my husband was like, what? Do you know her? And I was like, no. And I was like, but then I started so now I do that regularly. But again, there was a first time. And I remember talking to someone about that, and they're like, well, aren't you, like, what if they say they don't laugh? And I'm like, well, I don't know them, so don't really give a shit. Like, if they...
What's great about that is you only got to learn one joke to do that.
Listen to you.
Every time you get in an elevator,
there's always...
just got to remember one joke.
But see, the point, though, is not that you only learn one joke, but you can learn one joke. But again, it was relevant to the particular situation. But again, you do that one thing, and it's new, and then you open up a door. And now I do lots of different things like that all the time, where I decided I'm just going to sprinkle some laughter in somebody's life because kind of I need it too. So where in that personal life? Now, professional, I think a lot of people, for me, I thought I was learning stuff all the time. New ways to do this, new ways to do that. But I wanted, which I was. But again, how big is that risk and that reward? And I always like to say, why am I willing to fail on a small stage but not succeed on a big one? And I think I've mentioned this before in a podcast in one of my earlier episodes, is that I always want to get to the big stage, but I got to start at the small stage and just work my way up. And yeah, you don't want to get there before, but if I could just go to the big stage and start, because that's where I want to be. So if I could just maybe go, maybe I have a 50-50 chance of succeeding. I don't know what that percentage is, but why not stand on that stage? Because eventually I'm gonna have to get there anyway, if that's where I really want to go, which is a whole nother question. But why am I willing to just stay small or stay in my comfort or not do something new that puts me out there in business? I remember, and this tells you a lot about my mental state, not my mental state, but just my mindset and my framework. I came across very confident. I was told by others that I came across very confident in what I did. But I would sit there and send an email to partner, principal, or managing director. We called them PPMDs. And I would get so nervous. Like I would have written that email and read it. And I was talking to someone, a former colleague of mine, we were talking about that, where you send it and it goes off and you're like, oh God. But I think back now, and there were so many times when I wanted to do something different. I wanted to bring in an idea. I wanted to call something out. I wanted to say, hey, I don't think this is right. Let's do this over here. Or I had an idea and I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't engage that way for the first time. And then when I started to, I was told in a very HR way that I needed to start selling more. And after, 13 years, I was like, they were like, hey, you need to, and it's a numbers game. I get it. But so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to sell. But I hated selling. I hated the way that they sold. I never sold my way. So for me, the first time that I sold my way was very interesting. It was very different. And I remember having a conversation with Brandon, and I don't know if I've said this before on a podcast or not, but he basically said, Christine, I don't know who told you. Maybe Paul told you, maybe somebody, but somebody told you a long time ago that you couldn't sell and you bought that bullshit. And he's like, you can. You're just not. You're not doing it your way. So, whatever. And so I remember the first time I engaged differently in my own way. I really do. And I had a long career before this happened. And it was risky. I felt the adrenaline. I felt the holy shit, because there's nothing to hide behind. When you're standing there, there's nothing to hide behind. And the response was immediate and it was good. And then I had a bunch of immediate not good ones. But then I had good one, and you find your client, you find what, you find your rhythm, your mojo, or whatever you call that. But again, in business, so this is all new for me. And I'll tell on myself, yesterday we did some taping and I had worked on this podcast, going to do this podcast, going to do this episode. It's going to be good. And I came in here and I did it twice and it sucked both times. So, and I had a first. Wasn't that it sucked. That was my first. I've done lots of things and they've sucked. But the first was, and this was interesting, Joe, is I told you this before we got on the started today. I said, I've never had an interaction where someone said, okay, we'll just put that on the shelf. It sucks. We'll put that on the shelf. We'll look at it. You can pick it up. We can maybe do something with it later, whatever, but we'll just put it on the shelf. And so this is all new. I had a conversation this morning with someone about, and this is how new it is. About 6 months ago, or maybe 9, I was the first time I'd ever been on TikTok and watched it. And 3 hours later, underneath the covers, I'm scrolling. But again, I was like, and I remember texting Brady and being like, hey, what the hell? And he's like, yeah, But so this is all new, this format, this forum. I'm old school Big Four and, that. So business is new. But again, there's some of this funness about asking why and, getting out there and doing it. And just for the first time. I will tell you, the next area is spirituality and maybe your religion, so you call it religion, but your spiritual life. And for me, that's, what am I doing there? How can I engage differently? I practice Stoicism now. That was the first, and it's not a religion. It's more of a philosophy, but it helps me get to a place of understanding and higher thought and communication with that, with my higher power. So is there something, how can you engage differently there? What's one little thing? What's one little thing you can learn that's different, that's new, that's outside of what you normally think, do, and act? for the first time. And just dip your toe in it. Just test it out. Just, it's kind of like a taste, and that's the way life is. Life is really a smorgasbord, so taste and figure out what works. We've talked about this pantry. Figure out what works, but go out there. I mean, if you don't go to the grocery store and buy the shit, you don't get the shit in your pantry. So, and the only way, we all go try on clothes. And even if we don't try them on before we buy them, when we get them home, we try them on. Or sometimes we go, oh, wow, that's a really ugly color. There's no way that's going to fit over. That's like the size of one, leg. And I have 3 that need to fit in there, So what is that? What is that one thing? And then I was talking about physical. So let's bring in physical. I will tell you my experience as a woman. I did not, and I was a boxer. So I knew a lot of physical and I worked out and everything, but I did not understand and know about my body. The power of my body, the physical power of my body inside of what happens to me. And so I have been learning a lot, and I'm getting ready. Tomorrow is my follow-up. I'm starting hormone replacement therapy. Please make this freaking brain fog and sweats and hot flashes and just all this crap, level out just a little bit. I think she said that, because again, there's all this myths and stuff out there, but then there's some truths out there. So, I'll bring you along on that journey, but that's a first. Just even really learning about this and having conversations about this. And women, if you're listening and you're younger and you haven't hit menopause or perimenopause, what is going on with your body? Do you know? How are you asking? Ask some questions. Engage with your OBGYN. Engage with your lady friends different. Okay, ladies, what you're thinking about having a family. I was talking to a woman a couple weeks ago, and she, they're thinking about having another kid. And okay, well, engage with that differently. Ask, what happens to my body now? What happens to my financial ability now? What's going to happen to my, because again, that affects. There's a stat out there, and I don't know the specific stat, but, when women have children, it's a known fact that we lower our overall career lifetime earnings. And that's not, we can choose to do that, but have that conversation. Maybe it's get information. Maybe it's get information about what that means to do that. Maybe it's looking under the covers. Physical. Maybe it's, asking for what I want in bed, or saying, hey, I don't like that. Don't do that. Or I don't want to do that. Can we do something else to make, so you can have pleasure, or exploring. I don't know, but what's one little thing? Maybe it's eating something different. I don't know. But why are we not doing something for the first time? Why am I not doing it? What am I afraid of? Or and if I'm not afraid of doing it, then why am I not doing it? And as I'm talking, I can just hear myself go, well, I'm busy. I'm driving. I'm listening to this podcast. I got shit to do today. I'm driving to the kids are yapping in the background, or I'm driving home from work, or I've got to get dinner on okay, start there. Maybe it's podcast goes off and you start talking to your kids about ask them to tell you a joke, ask them to tell you a joke. Or maybe it's, hey, tonight for dinner, we're going to do something different. I want to try this recipe. Or, you know what? We always eat this on this, and we're not going to do that. I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Don't miss the opportunity to do it different. And again, you can always go back. I can always go back. You've heard me say this before, Joe. I can always turn around and stop. I know how to do what I've been doing in all those 4 areas of my life. And so just because I start something doesn't mean I have to follow through and continue it. It means I can turn around and go back anytime I want to. But then if that's the case, why am I not doing it? Why am I not? And I'm not asking, again, if you want to go run a marathon or, do this or that, maybe you need to rip the Band-Aid off and do something big. But for me, the more the little stuff I do, the more foundation I have of doing the big stuff. The more insights I get about, okay, an example. I did something for the first time. Went and had a facial for Valentine's Day. It was my gift for myself. And a friend of mine had given me this new lady's name, Level Up Skincare Raleigh. They're not paying me. Sahara is an amazing woman. So I'm like, all right, I got a 20% off. Game on. I'm broke. Let's go do this. And it's Valentine's, so whatever. I go in Saturday, and I'll just tell you, if you're in Raleigh, you need to go. And I'm kind of a facial snob, just level set. And so I've had a lot of different facials and everything. Absolutely amazing. Was not my first, so that's not my first. My first was a lot of the other stuff she did in the experience. But what my first that I took out of there is she didn't play spa music. And I hate spa music. I freaking hate. I don't hate it, but it's just because it's got to be the right kind. And she played, and it was. And again, this may turn some people off, but try it. I think, because I'm really, like I said, I'm a facial snob, spa snob, whatever. And it was Lebanese instrumental relaxation music. I didn't even know that there was that shit out there.
That's not a very popular category on
I have no idea. It may be very popular, just not like, so I was like, what is this music? And she's like, well, it's this. And it's the perfect music. And again, I had to find my groove on Spotify because there's lots of different, even within that category or genre or whatever the frick you want to call it, there's all these different things. But that was my first. So that's in my playlist when I go relax at night now. Again, just something different. Just something different. I learned a little bit about a culture and wow. Okay, yes. So that's on my playlist along with 50 Cent and TLC, Salt and Pepper, Missy Elliott, along with Foo Fighters, REM, Bob Seger, Queen. So put it in there. Put the kitchen sink in there and try something a little different. No, I'm not going to listen to it every day, but it's got its place. It's in my pantry now, and it's in yours now. So what is that one thing that you're going to do for the first time? Get excited about it. Freaking email me, tweet me. I don't know. Get on social media and let me know. But try it. Try it. And it could be horrible. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but at least check, done. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. Next, what's the next one thing you want to do for the first time? But if you've asked yourself, when was the last time I did something for the first time? And it's been a while. And you know what a while is for you. A while is different for every one of us, but it's been too long. And you're in that rigid comfort zone that is not comfortable anymore. Or maybe it's really comfortable. Well, then you should have all the confidence to be trying something new. So why? And more importantly, not even looking at why don't you just go do? Just go do. And see what happens. Because the more I do and the more I experience, that's the point of it. I've said this before. It's about the most participation trophies at the end of the day. I mean, think about that. And I do. I sit here sometimes and I think about, wow, it's not wasted time, but I don't get that time back. I'm going to bring up something, Joe, and I'm going to leave you with this because this is another way to look at this. When I came and brought this topic up, you told me about another phrase that you had heard.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell me what that was?
Yeah, you were talking about so this is about when's the last time you did something for the first time. I can't remember when I heard it, but it was a talk that somebody was given, and they basically reminded you that there was going to be a last time in your life for everything. And the thing that he said was, there's going to be a last time, like you hold your kids, like you pick up your kids. And my kids are older now. My oldest is like 17. And I picked her up last week because that really bothered me. I was like, yeah, that's a really bummer of a statement. And I don't think it means you should pick up your teenage kids, but
every day. But again, but I take that a little bit farther in thought. We assume we're always going to have another time to do something for the first time.
Yeah.
I assume I'm going to be able to get another shot at it, or go on this, or do this, or become this, or say this question. I'll have another shot to propose my thoughts or to articulate this. And that's not guaranteed. Time is not guaranteed. Time is not guaranteed. And, there was the plane crash a few weeks ago. And you look at the youth on that plane, and the old, but the youth especially. And that's just not guaranteed. So again, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting for? I don't want to wait. I want to do something for the first time as soon as possible, as much as possible. So take that, ladies. Let me know how it's working for you. Let me know the big epic ones and the tiny little ones that are really big and epic because they're the hard ones. Again, your size is just right size. So whatever you choose to do, it doesn't matter. Just do. And let me know. And until then, you are enough. This is amazing. And tubs, ladies.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.